fabled heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The wind tasted of ash. It whipped across the barren field, tugging at the edges of my cloak, a constant reminder of the desolate reality surrounding us. Before me stood him Sir Kaelen, the Blue Knight, champion of the Empire of Azure, they called him. Polished steel, the epitome of noble grace, everything my own armor wasn't. My armor, stained with the red dust of 1,000 battles, felt heavy, a second skin I'd grown weary of. The Crimson Kingdom's last line of defense, that's what asterisk they called me. We stood, two kings of dead kingdoms, mirrored images separated by allegiance and obligation. No hatred, no history bound us, just duty, a word that felt like a stone lodged in my throat. I'd seen his face only moments before, but had heard tales of the man, of his ability to cut down hordes with a single swing. The Empire believed that he was not only their strongest, but their only chance to survive. I thought back to my kingdom and the fact that I was their last hope, but they had given up a long time ago. They had seen what I had done, the sacrifices I had made, and they saw what it did to me. My hand tightened on the worn leather grip of my sword. It didn't have to be this way, I said, the words raspy, unused to the silence. I'd have happily continued my work of being a wall of protection for those that needed it. He didn't respond. His face, visible through the narrow slit of his helm, was a mask of cold determination. Perhaps he'd heard the same stories about me. The Butcher of Blackwood Asterisk, they called me, a title I wore like a shroud. A signal from the heavens, the sun blazed, the battle would begin. The clash was brutal, immediate. He moved with the precision of a dance, each strike aimed with deadly accuracy. I countered with raw force, the weight of my armor lending momentum to my blows. Our swords met in a shower of sparks, the ringing echoing across the empty field. He was strong, undeniably so, but there was a hesitation in his movements, a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher in his eyes. Doubt, regret. "You fight well, Knight of Crimson," he said, his voice echoing from within his helm. "As do you, Knight of Azure," I replied, parrying another blow. A pity we're destined to be enemies. His grip tightened on his sword. "Duty demands it." Duty, that damned word again. It was the banner under which we murdered each other, the justification for the unending war that had bled our lands dry. I hated it, loathed the bitter taste it left in my mouth. The fight wore on, the sun beat down on us, turning our armor into scorching prisons. Blow after blow, parry after parry, we traded cuts and bruises. The ground beneath our feet became a muddy tapestry of blood and sweat. We broke apart, gasping for air. My muscles screamed in protest. His pristine armor was now marred with dents and scratches, mirroring my own weariness. "Why?" I asked, the question torn from my throat. "Why are we doing this? For kings who sit on gilded thrones while their people starve, for lands that are already poisoned by war." He lowered his sword, his gaze meeting mine. For a moment, the mask of the Azure Knight slipped, revealing a glimpse of the man beneath. He saw the pain of the Crimson Knight who stood before him in all his might. I don't know," he confessed, his voice barely a whisper. That admission, that crack in his facade, was more disarming than any sword thrust. It was a shared vulnerability, a common ground in the desolate landscape of our conflict. The tides had changed. We lowered our weapons. The silence was deafening, broken only by the rustling of the wind. "What if," I began, carefully choosing my words, "what if there was another way? What if we refused to fight?" He hesitated, his gaze flicking towards the horizon. "They would call us traitors, they would hunt us down." "Perhaps," I said, a spark of defiance igniting within me, "but wouldn't it be better to die for a cause worth fighting for, rather than for a lie?" I extended my hand, calloused and bloodied. "Join me, Kaelen, let's end this senseless war." He looked at my hand, then back at me, his eyes filled with a storm of conflicting emotions. For the first time, I saw something beyond the polished facade of the Azure Knight, a man trapped by duty, yearning for something more. He took my hand, his grip was firm, resolute. "Agreed, but where do we go from here?" I smirked. "I have an idea, but first we need to disappear." Together we rode away, leaving behind the field of battle, leaving behind the kingdoms that demanded our loyalty. We became ghosts, fugitives from the very institutions we had once sworn to uphold. We spent weeks on the run, sleeping under the stars, dodging patrols, learning to trust each other. He told me of the corruption within the Empire of Azure, the power struggles, the lies. I shared my own experiences with the Crimson Kingdom, the famine, the neglect, the despair. Slowly, our shared experiences forged a bond between us. The initial animosity faded, replaced by a grudging respect, then a tentative friendship, and finally something deeper. I found myself drawn to his quiet strength, his unwavering sense of honor, even if it was misguided. He, in turn, seemed captivated by my raw honesty and my unwavering determination to protect the innocent. One night, as we sat by a crackling fire, the air thick with unspoken desires, he reached out and took my hand. "I never imagined," he said, his voice husky, "that I could feel this way about an enemy." "Nor did I admitted, my heart pounding in my chest. He leaned in, his lips brushing against mine. It was a tentative kiss at first, hesitant, as if testing the waters. But soon it deepened, becoming a passionate exploration, a merging of two souls who had been forced to be enemies, now seeking solace and connection in each other. But as the days turned into weeks, we started to feel as if someone or something was watching us. One morning we awoke to the sounds of soldiers from both empires surrounding our campsite. "We're going to take you in alive and unharmed if you return quietly," the commander for the Azure Empire called out, "or we can kill each of you right now and be done with this treachery." Both armies wanted the other to make the first move and start the fight. "We can't beat them all," Kaelen called out to me. "We don't have to," I responded. I closed my eyes and reached out to my family for help. It had been many years since I last spoke to them, but I knew they were there for me. "I need your help. There is no other way for us to escape." The land rumbled and the men around us started to panic. The ground began to shake violently and the mountain behind our camp exploded. Out of the smoke and fire, my family emerged. A family of werewolves, and I, their alpha, had finally come home.